welcome. It's a sad day because it's our very last live panel discussion of London Fashion Week, but it's a really good day because we're going to be talking about Meadham Kirchhoff, so it's always one of those shows that you want to discuss and it's sure to spark lots of debate and there's going to be lots of visual excitement coming our way. And aptly I've got a very exciting panel with me to help us talk all about what we've seen in London and to unpick what Ben and Ed are offering us this season. But I'll let you guys introduce yourselves to kick things off, starting with you, Rosanna.
I'm Rosanna Falconer and I'm Head of Digital at Matthew Williamson.
Hi, I'm Bertie Brandes and I am a freelance journalist.
And I'm Soki. I'm a freelance creative consultant and stylist.
And I'm Amarpaul Kalirai and I'm a photographer.
So obviously we are here to talk about Meadham Kirchhoff, but before we begin, because as I said, it's our last panel of London Fashion Week, so I do just want to spend a brief moment sort of talking about what we've seen this season. Has it been a good season? What have we enjoyed? What stood out?
There hasn't been a huge amount. There hasn't been a huge amount that I've really been in love with and felt really excited by.
Do you think it's been one of those flat seasons that you?
I think it maybe started a little flat. I think this morning Marcus Almeida really picked it up and I was really excited. Also Christopher Kane, again, I thought that was really exciting. And then hopefully Meadham as well, but they always do a great show.
Yeah. I like that noise, we don't get that enough on the panel.
I'll do it again.
It was good. How about you, Rosanna? Have you been following?
Yeah,
Have you been busy?
I've obviously I'm just emerging post-show from Matthew Williamson, but I think certainly thinking back to my BFC days when I used to work at the BFC and what London Fashion Week, how it's progressed and how it's developed, it's exciting to see the balance coming more and more between the established and the emerging, and two new ones this season. Issa with Blue at the helm now. I think that's a really interesting new proposition for a kind of a proper, a woman. It's all, I don't want to use the word wearable, I find it far more exciting than that. And I think that has real potential. And then also Hunter. They're a great brand, and the show was impeccable, and I love the way, from my digital perspective, the way they used Instagram as a second screen. And they put so much effort into the Instagram videos that they released live. It's amazing to have a brand like that in London with so much budget and they can spend.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's not just about the young designers. It's interesting to hear that you were seeing some of the sort of the more establishment brands doing something that was exciting. I think that's always. Sometimes I think those sort of stalwart brands get a little forgotten on these panels.
They do. Exactly. And this is no doubt going to prove really exciting. But it was interesting to see those new guys, definitely.
Yeah. How about you guys? What have you enjoyed? And are you excited for Meadham Kirchhoff?
Yeah. Yeah. Sorry, I'm just looking at the crowd.
Oh, there's Lola. Hi.
It's like face spotting. What's so great about Meadham though? Why do we all look forward to it? Paul, what do you love about what they do?
I love everything that they do. I think that I love all of I just love that they're amazing storytellers and that they're I don't know, so extravagant, and it's like they're everything that fashion should be. It should be fun, it should be playful, it should be extravagant, rich, all meshed into one. And I know they do take themselves very seriously. Their designs are and they do put a lot into their clothing, but there's an element about it that just doesn't take itself too seriously.
It's interesting that you say, this narrative thing, because we actually touched on that a little bit on this morning's panel when we were talking about Simone Rocha, and across these panel discussions, whether we're doing men's or women's and across the 4 cities, we often have this discussion that narrative fashion is kind of dead in some ways, and perhaps because of the pace of the schedules, it's really hard to do that. But it seems that we often feel that its places in London now. That's something that we see happening in our own capital, and it's interesting that for Meadham Kirchhoff, because that does seem to be one of their biggest strengths, is kind of telling a story. And I think we can forget how rare that is in fashion now. People often talk about Galliano and McQueen doing that, and there aren't many designers who still do, but they do that really, really nicely.
Yeah, a lot of stuff that I've seen this season has been very trend based, and it's not telling much of a story. Even though I've liked a lot of what I've seen, it's just more been based around primary colors or shape rather than story.
Something like Chanel, for their show, they'll use their set and they'll have an amazing set to tell a story, but you can't see it necessarily in the clothes themselves, whereas with Meadham, like, it permeates every facet of what they do. It's really integral to absolutely everything that they do, which is really exciting.
I think you need to have a lot of confidence to put on as much of a spectacle as they do.
Definitely.
Because some designers might be afraid that it takes away, it shines the light away from the clothes and the design. But like you say, it all just melds together so well. And it doesn't detract, except for that, was it autumn winter 2010 when the models, it was a live stream as well, but the live stream was over in like 2 minutes because they marched out and then they came out once more and it was all over in a flash.
Over in a flash. They can be quite, but I kind of love that with them, that they can kind of, they always do this kind of 2 fingers up thing. They
question the establishment.
Yeah. Soki, what do you like about what they do? Because when we emailed you about panels, you were like, I want to do Meadham. So
I love everything. I think when you read about them as people, you know, they seem to just, they do put 2 fingers up at fashion. They just think, I don't care about trends, I don't care about anything. They do what they like to do. And I think that's why they have such a big fan base, because people like to see what their eyes aren't used to seeing. It's like a little fantasy world. And sometimes I think that designers think so much about catering to a certain market or a certain brand, whatever, but I just feel like they just thought, it's almost as if they just thought, this is what I want to do, I love creating beautiful clothing, we're going to do it, and it's just happened to just work. And they've been so successful and so lucky that they've managed to tap into, you know, this world and commercial by doing their Topshop collection, and they've done so well. So I think they just create beautiful, like, amazing clothes. That's it, you know, that's art.
But also remember their transition and how it's changed. Because I remember I saw all their first shows.
It wasn't the same.
And it was minimalism.
I was saying to Nick just before, they used to show back to back with this guy called Christoph Stroessner, who really appealed to me. His first show was like pinks and brights, and it had that kind of colourful impact that their shows now have. Whereas they were all about the minimalism, and they weren't so successful at first. I remember the first show where they worked in a kind of flash of pink, and afterwards they were saying to Sarah Moore, we use pink, and as if that was a real, you know, that was a challenge for them. And now,
why do you think they've made that transition with such success? Do you think it's because they've always kind of had these same, you know, they have these core values that they talk about a lot, you know, that whether it's a love for music or, you know, Edward talks a lot about an interest in women and feminism. Do you think that's why they've made that transition well? It's because their core beliefs have stayed the same even if their aesthetic has changed?
Maybe they just grow, you know, as a person grows, they like different, you know, when we grow up, we like different clothing, we like different styles, and maybe they've just kind of just decided, like, this is us now, this is who we are, and then that's just happened. Maybe sometimes we don't need to think so much into it, so they've just kind of,
I guess a lot of people would maybe do an all black collection if they were particularly skeptical of the industry and they didn't feel maybe confident enough yet to do that whole, like, 2 fingers up brash and this is who we are and this is what we do. So at you know, they were growing at that point. They still were kind of maybe a bit disillusioned by the industry, but not quite ready to show it in full, if that makes sense.
No, that does make sense.
He said in I think Edward said in his interview with you that he had like glitter shame or something.
Yeah.
At first, like he was
really nice.
Yeah, glitter shame, which is such a great quote. Like, afraid to, you know, embrace the unicorns and the rainbows of this world.
But I remember when Benjamin Kirchhoff was doing his own label, and it was Benjamin. It was so simple, and it was so clean, and it pretty much was all black and navy blue. And then I think probably I see so much of Edward in this part of the collection now.
Their working relationship is very interesting, I think, how those ideas... I think you often get that with design duos where sometimes maybe you see more of one at first glance, but then at second glance you get more of the other when you understand the story. I think it's nice to have duos. What do we think about that? Having, because, you know, I'm obsessed with Aggie and Sam, I think they're great. So, but you have it on the men's, and this kind of... I think it's really great with the younger designers to see them working as a pair. You kind of... You have a bit more faith in them because you think there's someone looking out for them. So there's 2 of them. Yeah? Oh, sorry. He always has to shout.
That was interesting.
Let's go back to the duo conversation.
I would like to discuss
so good.
Hearts. Yeah, we should also talk, because we've just seen those hearts, about how brilliant their invites are.
Yeah, not Valentine's, but perfectly timed.
Yeah, I know Liam came over and was like, oh, I thought it was a Valentine's card for you. Made me feel really bad. Thanks for that.
I want to see a full shot.
Looks really sophisticated
Oh
for
my god,
stuff.
yes, it's like workwear. It's
Yeah.
brilliant.
They're gunning for the Chanel job, aren't they?
I mean, literally, it's like Hello Coco.
Yeah.
It's interesting, something you mentioned, Soki, you know, with the commercial aspect of them, because I think actually when you look at them on, especially like on online retailers that stock them, and you see the actual pieces that get picked up, they are incredibly kind of beautiful, but there's such a simplicity to them. It's very wearable. Like a lot of those little Peter Pan collared, simple velvet dresses, and actually you can see the collection diffuse down. And a lot of people say they've become more commercial over the seasons, which I don't necessarily agree with. I think they've just tuned to what buyers pick up on. I think they probably listen to their stockists in a really...
Well, I remember like their Topshop collection, they had these like red PVC like hot pants with frills on them, and I just think, well, I love them, but who would wear them? But they sold out within the day, so people do love.
I feel like already this show doesn't look as heavily styled as the last
not
like
at
3 or
all, not at all.
4 collections. So I think
It's got
that's what
quite
they generally
costumey,
do.
hasn't it? Whereas this is kind of pulling back from that.
And the
Yeah.
makeup
Yeah.
is pulling back as well. Like it looks like just a light glitter.
A light dusting.
A light dusting. No, it's still, you know, glitter, no glitter shame, but
But I think they need to chop and change things a little bit, and I think...
This is quite restrained for them, isn't it?
Yeah. I wish they would walk through the tinsel.
Yeah. Yeah.
I keep seeing it and I want to see them go through it.
Always such good casting, the Meadham shows.
Yeah, the casting's really, really
So good, and it's hard on the last day of Fashion Week
Yeah,
to get good
definitely.
models.
No, I think that's a really good point to make.
Yeah.
People forget about that difficult
They're
side.
gone, they're all
Yeah.
gone.
and they also have so many models. So I always find the finale at a Meadham show is really impactful.
Yeah,
You get the
definitely.
full narrative, which is obviously so important to them. Because they talk about not having a
love
signature
that.
and just this love of storytelling through their collections. What's the story this season?
That's Sophia Kelly, she's the best. She's like the coolest model ever.
Why do you like her so much?
She was in the Ryan Lowe show that I styled on Sunday. She's just really cool. You know when you meet someone you're like, yeah, I really like you. Yeah.
I love that.
What do we think of this kind of like girlish thing that we're seeing a lot of? Because it's something, I guess it's akin to what you were just saying about Ryan, because you work with
she
him.
walked
And
through it.
we see a lot of it, this kind of pastels, and it's kind of bad girlish. It's trying to make you a little bit uncomfortable. And it's young.
It's sexy and youthful, which I
Yeah.
think does make people uncomfortable. But it's really interesting to see that in fashion.
Do you think it's kind of thinking about it from a, you know, there's all this talk about like women being sort of free with their wardrobes now, they can wear whatever they want. Do you think it is about reclaiming sort of traditional femininity? It's okay to wear pink and florals and pastels now, isn't it?
Yeah, totally. I'm sure.
I think it's about, well, a lot of it just makes me think of taking like pastel colors and making it a bit twisted.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's their whole kind
Which
of
I guess is
thing.
a way of undermining that
Which
connotation.
is the whole thing,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
And it I think the reason maybe some of the collections that make the audience a little bit uncomfortable is it's saccharine sweet, but we all know what they're all about.
Exactly.
And they, you know, they're more kind of Courtney Love. They don't want this idea of this girly girl who's
Yeah.
there to, I don't know, impress boys in
Yeah.
their pink little dress.
It's the good girl gone bad.
Yeah, that's.
Isn't that like a Rihanna song or something?
I love when we've quoted Britney on these panels, we now quote Rihanna. I quite like the uniform
there's
aspects of
Charlotte.
this, like working girl uniform, you know, like
Yeah, definitely.
kind of air hostessy and
Quite Ally McBeal.
And all of the blouses so far have been sheer, haven't they? But
Yeah.
then with a black, there's interesting underwear going on, I'm seeing. And are those shoes just complete clodhoppers?
yeah.
They're the same as the pastel blue and pink ones they did, I think, 2 seasons ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But in black, which makes me want them more.
So we all kind of said that this is, you know, a little bit more perhaps restrained, it's less costumey. We're surprised by it because it's not exactly what I was expecting.
I mean, if
No,
the set
me
wasn't
neither.
there, it wouldn't be that.
Yeah.
You know, it's not
It's much more
quite.
grown up.
Yeah, exactly.
Ooh.
Well, that's quite
That reminds
classic
me of that
Meadham.
amazing turnaround gypsy collection they did with the tiaras, and I love that.
Yeah, that was really good.
That just left everyone speechless.
Yeah. But I think maybe they're graduating from that a little bit. They don't want to be, you know, like this season, Rick Owens didn't do anything theatrical because he was like, I didn't want to just be that. And maybe there's an element of that for them, you know, they don't want to just be too kind of...
It doesn't feel like they have like a really honed in idea of what, like last season, I don't know, it was like Marie Antoinette or whatever, and the season before, Courtney Love. This one just doesn't, this feels like more of a collection of their collections.
Yeah. Which I guess
so did the last one, I think. It really did feel like a collection of their collections, and they just did that retrospective at the V&A.
That's what I was just thinking.
So maybe it's about them being more comfortable in what they're about now, and not feeling that they have to channel a particular inspiration so much that they can be a bit more fluid.
And maybe because they're quite like established now that they can start
to reference themselves rather than referencing something else.
Those are like goth boots
I
in
like
rainbows.
those.
They remind me of the boots that Louise Gray used to do and wear. She was the ultimate Meadham muse. She just looked amazing in it. But I think also they say they don't have signatures, but one thing that remains, and I think all of us would be able to tell this was a Meadham collection even if we didn't know, because of the attention to craft and detail and lace, and I'm sure that the lace pictured here is kind of worthy of the levels of Le Petit Main for couture, and that's, people always say that when they see it up close.
And even the subversiveness goes into that, the lace last season, it had kind of weird motifs, like little baby bunnies riding horses or something in the lace itself.
Wow.
So they kind of really bring the sinister element right down to the final touches. Which goes back again to something we were talking about on the Simone panel, which is this idea of clothes for the catwalk, but also clothes for the wearer, where they almost have a secret that you don't know about unless you buy, that thing where if you own it, you kind of know it in a different way to just someone who sees it, which I always think they do in an interesting way. What do we think about the fact that they call themselves feminists? Do we think that comes through in the collection?
I don't think that was the first thing that would come to mind when I looked at this.
It is the first thing that would come to mind, did you say?
No, it wouldn't be the first thing.
The thing is, feminism nowadays, it's all such a blurred line. It's not like the burning bras of the 70s. And I don't know, my mum gets angry because she thinks we should all not burn bras, but be more. I think the definition now is far more fluid than it used to be.
I guess the point is you can't tell a feminist from looking at one, can you?
Yeah,
and
exactly.
so it doesn't. Obviously you can't tell, but if they say they are, and that's how they behave in interviews, and this is the girl that they designed for, with her like hair down, kind of fresh face. Oh my God, Anna's in it!
Yeah,
amazing.
she's so cute.
Yeah, and like streetcast girls along with
like
models.
I feel like they've got this little tick box, box where they've just thought, right, we've catered to this kind of person, and even down to some of the girls that they've used. Was it they did that ID shoot and they've got Anna.
Yeah, it's amazing.
They've picked like certain girls that do they're all kind of photographers, quite young.
Yeah, so Melissa, who does all their castings, basically is just like a queen. She gets all the best girls.
Yeah, they're amazing.
I think it's also they just do everything with such conviction, and their wearer would too, and it's not like if you're a feminist you have to wear a power suit nowadays. You just wear, it's all about wearing what you really want to wear. And you wouldn't wear Meadham Kirchhoff clothes, particularly a full look, without complete conviction.
No, definitely.
And that kind of, that love and of dressing and of the fun of fashion.
Let's talk a little bit about this street casting thing, because it's something that we've often talked about on the panels, that you see a lot of it in the menswear, but I think it's not really caught on so much in the women's wear. You see it even at the big brands at the menswear. It's this real idea that it's fine to use guys of any age, kind of varying sort of like, even just like down to their hair is really different. If you look at like in a men's show, you'll see guys with cropped hair, long hair, beards, moustaches, all in one show. But the women's wear, there's still this idea of all the girls having to look quite identical. Why don't we think this kind of street casting thing is caught on as much? Is women's wear just inherently a little bit more
conservative? Like such an old trope, doesn't it? It's that old classic cliche of sick thin models wear like clothes hangers, and I think people got bored of it a long time ago, but it's just starting to change on the runway now. Whereas you want to see clothes on the girls that inspired the designers to make those clothes. Even if we can afford them necessarily, those girls that are walking in them can like go to a charity shop, find something kind of similar, cut the sleeves off it, add like something to the hem, and there you go, voila, Meadham girl.
No, I like that idea, and I think we talked about that on the panel last season for Meadham as well, that there's an element of democracy to what they do, because even though it's so, as Rosanna said, the craft is so amazing, there is this idea that you can buy into the aesthetic and you can try and mirror it. And you see, especially if you go to one of the art colleges, and if you go to a talk there and you look at the students or something, and you can tell the ones that love Meadham because they've fashioned their own version of it, and it's always really nice to see. I'm actually really keen to see it all again, because it's one of those ones where it didn't feel as concise in terms of an idea.
No, I don't get that one bold theme.
Yeah.
And the set's kind of like generic Meadham Kirchhoff, which is probably an oxymoron.
And some of the looks, the sheer lace, there was a scarlet look towards the end, which they seem familiar, but in a good way, because I've loved those looks in the past.
But thinking
thinking
ahead as well, like I could see a lot more of this in shops than I could in previous seasons, because I think it's probably quite hard to sell, but this looks quite...
Yeah, that's true actually, that you can... But it doesn't feel overly commercial though, does it, when you look at it? But then actually you're right.
Because there's like, the looks aren't so heavily styled, they're more one dress, one shirt and trousers. Like I know from past seasons it's like a dress over top a cardigan with a t-shirt with a backpack with a fur coat.
Yeah, this is cleaner in that sense, you're right. They're walking through the tinsel as well.
Yeah.
Do Edward and Benjamin come out? I don't think they do.
They come out, but like really shyly. Straight back in. Oh, maybe?
Oh, they look furious.
I remember they did at Port Eliot Festival. They did. It was amazing. Flower tiaras for all the children and me, and they weren't like the typical flower, you know, like it's a festival in Cornwall. Yeah, they're not like typical people who have a stand at a festival, but the children adored them, and oh my goodness, the vision of seeing all these gorgeous little children walking around with their Meadham flower tiaras. Oh, whenever
Sam McKnight did like a cake baking class.
Yes, I was there with Camilla Morton.
Yeah, so good.
Love Port Eliot.
Yeah. No, I think there is something really childlike about it, but it's not kind of. It is really youthful in the kind of the pastels and the hearts and all of that, but it doesn't feel kind of young, you know, it feels like a woman of different...
But you know how they're so interested in Tavi and Rookie and that whole element, it's that cusp of adulthood, isn't it, where you're young, but you're turning into a woman, it's kind of adolescence, and that's something that maybe doesn't get talked about particularly. All of those magazines have gone under, so we need to channel it somehow.
But do you think there's an odd element to doing that in a high fashion context? Because you're never going to, apart from Tavi, there are very few sort of late, well, kind of weird, that teen age where you can afford to buy high fashion. So
no, of course, but then they're so anti-consumerism, aren't they? I mean, I do feel like, maybe I'm completely wrong, but I feel like they design to inspire so that you can then go and recreate. Not like they designed for you to covet certain things, because you just would never get them. I mean, we know the price points, it's like thousands and thousands of pounds, it's just not realistic.
How do we see their business kind of surviving then and growing? Because you're right, they are kind of, I completely agree with that, I think they design to inspire, but then how does that work? Because fashion is a...
I guess they'd go somewhere, they'd go to another house maybe. That'd be so
Another Topshop collaboration.
Yeah, this is true, that would be good.
That was hugely successful. Also, is it that they start doing more they did do some really good separates, and everyone always
and they've
says...
done like the sweatshirts with Amazon.
Exactly.
And scarves.
Is it that they take one of those and start using that as their, I don't know, there's the Kenzo jumper, is it going to be the Meadham shorts? That's a really bad example.
No,
It's probably on their commercial. But is it that they choose one piece that they're going to sink all of their commerciality into?
Or a fragrance.
Yeah, that's
true.
the
fragrance, of course.
And very few young designers do a fragrance.
With Penhaligon's. They've just launched it, I think.
What's it? It's like Tra-la-la.
It smells nice. It smells a bit like a granny.
Yeah.
In a nice way.
Which is quite that kind of teen thing, again, where you go to Granny's house and borrow her clothes and smell a bit like her. It's quite a... But it's really sinister. I kind of love that. I think it makes people think about femininity in a different way.
Yeah, and I think that's maybe their take on feminism, that it forces us to question it and question our usual take on feminine dressing.
It's not typically sexy.
Yeah,
we were talking about granny dresses earlier, and there we go.
But it's that thing someone said on a panel once, I think it was one of these panels, I can't remember which one it was because they all kind of blur into one at some point. But they said, strong women get a lot of time in fashion, but kind of weak women or women, not even weak women, but other women don't. It's always about the strong women. And I think there's something quite interesting about what they do, because it's not a strong woman, it's not this kind of fierce working woman looking amazing and kind of Celine or really sexy. It's this kind of an awkward girl, and you're not quite sure if she's comfortable with her body or comfortable with herself, and that kind of a woman doesn't get a lot of space. And I think quite a lot of the younger designers are kind of looking at that, which I think is more sympathetic design towards women. It's interesting to see. I
really think it's just about age and youth. I was looking at, in the rookie yearbook, there's like a Meadham little feature, and there's pictures from their inspiration wall, and there's like pictures of Arvida Bystrom, who's like a young sort of feminist photographer and online artist. She's what, like 22 now, and this was about 2 years ago. I think they're just really inspired by that cusp, which is really interesting. And as you're saying about the strong women get a lot of time in fashion, like non-women get a lot of time in fashion. Those people do not exist in real life aside from within this industry. So maybe this is like a more realistic representation.
Do you mean strong women don't exist in real life?
No, like the non-women of the runways, you know, like the women who wear all white, like snakeskin and like
but at the same time, it takes a really strong woman to wear a look like that.
But I think you see this more. This feels more familiar, even though this is kind of otherworldly and crazy. This feels more sort of real and familiar to me than a lot of what you see at London Fashion Week, when it is, as Bertie says, this kind of polished, all in white, or wearing some amazing tailoring. You don't actually ever see that.
The thing is, you know, we were using the word wearable earlier, and I was like, I hate that word. Actually, I think a lot of people might see tailoring, which is actually quite difficult to wear sometimes, because it's all got to be pristine and dry clean, and think, oh, that's really wearable. When really, as separates, these pieces, you know, chuck on a little floaty skirt with a t-shirt.
Well, you see girls dressing like that, don't you? Like a clumpy pair of shoes, dress, layered up, you know, that it is a more familiar, obviously it's pushed to an extreme. But it's more familiar than, and you're right with that kind of the flippancy of the show reviewer when they're at a show and it's some tailoring and they're like, oh, such a wearable collection.
So wearable.
And then you're like, it's a white, like, billowing trouser suit. That's not remotely wearable.
Exactly.
Yeah, no, that's very true, actually.
Yet again, this is a winter collection that for me just...
They're also summery.
I'm kind of bored of like, oh, it's winter and it's summer, because it's like...
Everyone is, I think.
But also, it's like...
dresses for a season.
Exactly.
Me?
But
what?
we're in
you need a massive warm coat. I like Ugg boots.
Yeah, the international jet setters. Evidently,
it's not even an international jet setter. If you think where this will be bought, and I think it's particularly true in London.
Going to LA right now.
Where they're sold, it will be sold like all over the world. Like London designs don't really sell in London. That's the irony of it all. I think we analyse them from such a London perspective. We're like, what does this say about London? But actually, it doesn't say anything about London, because it's not really going to be. I think that's always the irony, and that goes into that seasonal thing of like.
Because also we were saying earlier about stockists, and I don't know if it's because they haven't arrived. Because they can't even talk. They did start to be stocked on Net-a-Porter, and then they're not on there anymore.
They're stocked by Browns, Meadham.
And then, do you know about the international stockists? Because I think that'd be interesting what you were saying about.
I don't know that much about exactly the shops that sell them, but I know that like,
Lavisa, Roma sells them.
Yeah.
I don't know who else.
Oh, we need a
But that's
buyer.
what I was saying
We're missing.
earlier.
Try an online shop for some Meadham Kirchhoff, see where you end up. Thanks, team. I want to go back to one thing, we mentioned it kind of before and during, and I'm really interested in Bio, which is, you know, you said, Paul, that they take themselves very seriously as designers, and Bertie, when they came out, you're like, they look furious, and having interviewed them, you know, they do, they're like, I loved interviewing them, and I found them really great and incredibly interesting, but they're difficult, you know, they like to be difficult, I think, and not in a kind of sort of annoying, childish way, just in a, they take themselves seriously and they expect you to take them seriously, and if they don't think your question's good, they won't answer it, and they can be quite kind of tricksy in that respect. Do we like that? Do we like that a designer can be... No, would you prefer they're a bit more sociable?
I don't know, it's difficult, isn't it? I mean, Meadham it's hard to get a ticket to Meadham, like they're quite, dare I say it, stingy, and they seem quite unapproachable as people and standoffish and like not that interested. But then again, does it really matter what they're like?
Yeah.
Should we expect them to be great and chatty on TV? Like, they make great clothes, they have great collections. What their collections say is really interesting, so maybe we don't need them to be like TV presenters.
But I read in an interview today, I can't remember who it was with, and they were saying how people portray them as being difficult, and they were like, well, we're not difficult, we just have opinions and we like to do what we do. And when they mentioned about their fan base and how they've got young teen girls messaging them and stuff like that, it didn't see, from what I took from it, it didn't seem that they were kind of elitist or you know, it's the same with any show, you know, no matter how big they are, like it's difficult unless you know someone to get a ticket. I just feel like, you know, they just do what they're meant to do. They're designers and they let other people come in and handle like the production and you know,
I'm
the show.
sure the ticketing thing is a PR thing rather than the design.
Is it Meadham Kirchhoff who don't lend to celebrity? Am I completely wrong?
I don't think they lend to celebrity.
No, I've never seen it.
It kind of makes you think that by not lending to celebrity and being difficult, I don't know if they're meaning to be difficult or not, makes you think that it makes the collection just on a higher level.
No, I agree. I don't think they're petulant in any way. I think I completely agree with Soki. They're kind of, I think they're difficult in the sense of, I think we find them difficult because we're so used to design. I think a lot of media is they're difficult because they're used to designers being like, as Bertie says, like, hello, like I'm going to be amazing.
They don't seem like publicity whores. That's
no, and I think they're shy and they're a bit awkward sometimes. And I think, and maybe that's what I mean with the question, like, is it okay that designers can still be like that? Because I think we expect a lot of our designers.
I in that sense, I kind of like it better rather than seeing it on like Lindsay Lohan and everyone. Do you know what I mean? Like, why give it out to all these celebrities who are gonna push your brand in a direction that you don't necessarily want to go in?
Yeah, I've heard this a lot from designers, particularly with men's designers, but saying how they feel like once the collection is out, it just is taken away from them. Like from when you do a show, so many people will film it, take pictures, like change it in their own way, put it up on their site, like in all this different way. It's just gone from you. It's like you had it once, you created it, and now you have no control over what happens to it.
Especially when the buy comes in, you know, because then it becomes a whole new thing.
I think that's a really interesting new dynamic to this industry as well. I'm sure you interested in that because of digital.
Well, Meadham, it's just, you know, in the same way that they don't court they're quite, like, they're rarely interviewed, and when they do, they can be a bit bullshit, and I cannot imagine these guys really having like a, you know, some designers would, because like Mary Ransu, for example, Matthew, I would also say, they're great with people, and Mary and Matthew, when you meet them, they love talking about their designs. They are very good at talking about their designs, and that translates
and it helps them own
to
the
digital.
collection, I think.
Definitely, and that translates well to digital. There's a whole story behind it. I can't imagine Meadham, I should say Edward and Ben, having the same, but that doesn't stop them having this huge digital impact. Like on Instagram, there's nearly 5,000 hashtags of Meadham Kirchhoff, none of which is self-generated. Tumblr is covered still in that rainbow unicorn collection, which I can't now remember the season, but I should. I think it was SS11.
Spring Summer 11, the Riot Girl one.
Yes. And they don't look for that kind of.
Well, it's interesting. You're right. It's such a kind of digital generation aesthetic because it's so Tumblr-y in that sense, but then they're not online in that sense. So it's kind of
their website at the moment on the homepage has a collection. I think it's got last summer's collection still. Like
they just
don't. Also, obviously, they're an emerging brand. Well, no, they're what we used to call it the British Fashion Council, emerging established, I think. But they wouldn't have a big team, and obviously digital PR, all of that takes up a lot of time.
Costs a huge amount.
And costs a huge amount, exactly.
And I think this is what I was kind of getting at earlier, but we expect our designers to be everything. You know, we expect them to be spokespeople and designers and social media experts and so many different things. And I think it's kind of nice that they do what they do and they're kind of fine with that. You know, they're not going to give you a great soundbite for your interview if they don't feel like you don't ask a question that they kind of...
Their work is strong enough to speak for itself. They don't need to do... I sort of think they're a really good role model for young designers to look at their... I know you said their first collections were slightly different, but from when they've kind of done this wave of what they're doing, to kind of watch them and watch how they've done, even when it comes to casting, the way they've thought about it, like PR, the way you're saying they don't lend to celebrities, I think it's a really good way to, if you want to be taken seriously as a designer, of a way to go. I think it's just to watch their career develop.
And how does this suggest they're developing forwards? Because we've all looking at the collection, we said, you know, there's not that one obvious aesthetic, there's not that one obvious inspiration. It does feel a bit of a kind of greatest hits collection in a sense. You know, you see a lot of the Meadham signatures coming through, and I mean that in a really great way. I really enjoyed watching it actually. And I think to me this appeals more than previous seasons have when it does feel a little bit more costumey. But what does this suggest for them?
I mean, this is definitely pared down when you think about those kind of red twists of hair and the hats of last season. It's pared down, it's self-referential, it's trademark, Meadham Kirchhoff, it's confident.
It's not costumey.
No, it's not. So it's, it has its feet in the real world and its head in the clouds.
See, but I love when they do the massive show and they make the massive character. Like, I kind of miss it from this. Like, that's why I get really excited to see them, is because they just go over the top with everything. And I think they do it so well.
They, I think, again, in the interview that you did so expertly with them,
I think a great interview.
It is a great.
Watch it on Show Studio now.
I think Ben said he saw the show as being like a pop concert, and he loves the idea of a spectacle of it. And I attended the one with the one that kind of went down in fashion history with the little ballerinas at the beginning and the ballerinas spinning on the cake at the end, and the way a lot of people left crying in it. You always hear about the shows back in the 80s and the early 90s that were spectacular and rendered those kind of emotions in people, and it doesn't. Shows nowadays can tend to be a little bit corporate, or and sometimes because designers just think I want clean white catwalk, or focus on the clothes like Meadham Kirchhoff did in their early days. But wow, it was amazing to go to a show like that, and just it all tied together so well. And actually, we did all remember the clothes, and I think we will for years to come, because the set and the music, it just all stirred such an emotion. So.
But I'm sure with Meadham they'll come full circle, won't they? I think that's the excitement with them.
Yeah.
But they did. At the Tate Tanks 2 seasons ago, they had no set. Yeah. And they just had basically entirely monochrome girls walking like diagonally, all street cast, I think.
And
so
lots
maybe
of
this
roses,
is
wasn't it?
maybe this is their way.
Just nothing.
They had nothing that season. Didn't they?
Maybe this is their way of just saying we're gonna do what we want.
Yeah, definitely.
Every season, don't judge.
Yeah, like don't predict.
Don't expect that we're gonna do what we want.
I feel like I would just see this like the next issue of Love, like when you're just looking through the adverts and you've got Miu Miu, Prada, and you could just see that and just think, yeah, that just belongs in there too.
Yeah. So we're impressed. We're impressed.
Yeah.
They definitely don't want to be put in a box. I think that's what we were saying, wasn't it? Which we love.
And the elements of those early collections, the so-called more minimal ones, there was still, they had a lot of torn lace, both in shirts and in rips of jeans. And just looking at the 3 images on the screen, it's all monochromatic. That does go back. And I'm sure you were mentioning, did you go to the V&A Fashion in Motion thing?
No, I didn't actually.
I didn't get to go either.
No.
But from what I hear,
not in the same casting.
Yeah, and it all actually, even though it spanned their whole career, there was no jarring there. They all worked together well as a narrative. So.
I think Bertie put it really well with feet on the ground but head in the clouds.
You know what, actually I think it's the other way around though, because their heads are really simple and plain and then their feet are on giant claw toppers. Can I just reverse that?
So it's head on the ground, feet in the
clouds. I think that's better.
Oh, well thank you. Thank you for enjoying Meadham Kirchhoff with me. I think that was a great panel and a worthy note to end London Fashion Week on, as Meadham Kirchhoff always is. So thank you. Should we give Ed and Ben a little clap? Because I think